Have you ever noticed that there's this deeply ingrained human behavior we all just kind of do, but literally almost no one admits to it? To really understand what's going on, we have to put on our evolutionary psychology hats. In this explainer, we're diving into the quiet and, honestly, somewhat unsettling forces that drive our daily actions. We're going to see exactly why our ancient brains are reacting to the modern world in ways we barely even comprehend. Let's get right into it.
Picture this, because I know it's incredibly relatable. You post something online. You tell yourself, hey, it doesn't matter. You lock your screen, and you pretend not to care. Yet almost automatically, your hand reaches right back for it, doesn't it? You check who liked it, who viewed it, who totally ignored it, and in that exact moment, despite all your denial, you experience a very real, very visceral emotional reaction.
And this perfectly illustrates our weird modern predicament. Why on earth do we construct these elaborate facades of total indifference when our internal emotional lives are so deeply organized around just being seen? We've somehow become absolute experts at hiding our need for attention, all while quietly revolving our entire existence right around it.
Section 1. The illusion of not caring. Let's look at how this plays out far beyond just the digital world.
You know, most people don't realize just how much of their everyday behavior is actually a subconscious performance. Think about the way you dress, or the opinions you suddenly feel compelled to share at a dinner party, the lifestyle you put on display, even your silence. Yeah, in certain situations, even saying nothing at all becomes this carefully calculated move. It's the whole shebang, and it's all driven by a deep psychological need for validation that goes way, way beyond simple ego.
Moving on to Section 2. Why rejection physically hurts, a matter of survival.
Now, modern society loves to dismiss this emotional sensitivity as mere insecurity, but if we look closer, it's actually a deeply embedded survival mechanism. Picture this. Thousands of years ago, human beings survived exclusively in small social tribes. In that harsh, brutally unforgiving environment, being ignored or pushed out by your group wasn't just emotionally uncomfortable, it was literally fatal.
So, to your conscious, logical mind, being left out of a group chat or getting ignored online is just pixels on a screen, right? But to your ancient nervous system, there is absolutely no difference between a digital slight and being exiled out into the freezing wilderness to die. This is exactly why rejection physically aches in your chest. Your brain literally equates social exclusion with physical extinction. No wonder it hurts.
Because our ancestors' survival depended entirely on the protection of that tight-knit collective, the human brain had to evolve to obsessively monitor these specific social signals. We became hypersensitive to microscopic shifts in facial expressions, threats of humiliation, and exactly where we stand in the pack. Basically, we are biologically hardwired to scan the room for approval. Our lives used to depend on it.
Section 3. When attention became measurable. Let's see what happens when our ancient wiring collides with the digital age.
Here's where the story takes a slightly unsettling turn. For the very first time in human history, attention became instantly, perfectly measurable. You upload a piece of yourself and boom, you receive numerical proof of social approval. 10 likes might feel pretty exciting at first, but our brains adapt rapidly. Almost overnight, that 10 becomes the new baseline, and it quickly starts to feel, well, disappointing. So naturally, you chase more. You hit 50. But then, almost like clockwork, that emotional reward fades away again. Your nervous system adjusts to the new normal. Suddenly, getting 50 signals of social approval just feels perfectly average. It still doesn't provide that enduring, undeniable safety your primitive brain is desperately begging for. Ultimately, even hitting 100 feels completely hollow. And this right here drives one of the most psychologically exhausting and addictive cycles in modern life. We are essentially trapped on a treadmill, desperately chasing more recognition, hoping against hope it will finally give us a feeling of emotional certainty that, honestly, simply never arrives.
It really boils down to this. The human nervous system was simply never prepared for this. Ancient humans did not receive rapid-fire social judgment from thousands of strangers on a daily basis, and they certainly didn't wake up every morning just to immediately compare their actual messy lives against millions of carefully edited, highly curated illusions of other humans. It's completely unprecedented.
It's a vicious loop. You chase external validation, you experience a fleeting, temporary moment of emotional relief, then the reward fades and the hunger returns.
Because external approval is inherently unstable and constantly changing, placing your entire self-worth into this endless cycle ensures your emotional state stays incredibly fragile. I mean, you can literally be elevated for hours by a single compliment and then completely destroyed in seconds by one random negative comment.
Section 4. Identity as a performance. This brings us to a strange, invisible economy.
The unsettling truth is, a lot of humans today aren't really simply living anymore. They're actively managing personal brands. They're filtering their own personalities for public approval, editing their emotions, tweaking their opinions, constantly monitoring their behavior, adapting naturally to whatever social performances algorithmically reward them with the most visibility.
And this is where the need for validation becomes truly dangerous. People slowly stop exploring their authentic selves. They stop asking, "Who am I really?" Instead, they subconsciously curate an identity based entirely on a different question: what version of me gets accepted? The human identity itself mutates. It becomes nothing more than a performance.
So now, we're basically experiencing ourselves through imagined observation. We're constantly performing for this invisible audience in our heads. And this constant, draining self-awareness completely explains why modern people feel so mentally exhausted and emotionally isolated. Think about it. You can receive thousands of likes, appear perfectly happy on the surface, and yet still feel completely, utterly empty inside.
Which leads us to our final section, Section 5, the fear of being insignificant. Let's look beneath the metrics. As we peel back this final psychological layer, we find that at its core, this intense validation seeking is rarely actually about narcissism. It is fundamentally driven by profound, deep-seated fear. The fear of being completely ignored, the fear of being forgotten. It's the terrifying, quiet thought that our existence holds no emotional meaning or impact to anyone else. And remember, that is a feeling our ancient nervous system directly equates to death.
As the quote goes, silence slowly starts feeling like irrelevance. In a modern society that constantly rewards the absolute loudest voices and reduces deep human connection to mere metrics, the absence of digital attention actually begins to feel like you are emotionally disappearing from the world entirely. We've managed to transform connection into a performance and attention into literal currency.
This emerging psychological pattern reveals a pretty chilling truth. It perfectly explains why we fear boredom, silence, and solitude more today than ever before in human history. We are actively using this constant, loud external stimulation as a shield. The endless scrolling, it's just a defense mechanism against sitting alone with our own minds.
So, as we wrap up this explainer and confront this reality, I want to leave you with a deeply uncomfortable question to reflect on, one that really forces us to face our self-worth in the sometimes terrifying silence of our own company. Once all the screens go dark, and that invisible audience finally goes home, who are we really when nobody is watching?